Yes. All right, I'm starting.
Good evening. My name is Mike Graham. I'm the Public Information Officer with the City of Tucson Department of Transportation and Mobility. I want to thank everybody for attending tonight's virtual public meeting regarding the Irvington to 22nd Street virtual public art meeting that we're having tonight. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to gather public input on the proposed art concepts associated with this project. I want to let everyone know that the comments that we get tonight, they'll be turned over to the artist as well as the Arts Foundation and also to the Ward 4 Council office. The program tonight, following my introduction, I'll turn it over to Ward 4 Council Member Nikki Lee. She'll provide a brief presentation, and that'll be followed by the artist, Carolyn Broxma, and her husband John, and then we'll go following the artist's presentation. We will then go back to Councilmember Lee, who will close the meeting or close that section of the meeting off, and then we will start a Q&A session. In the chat box or the conversation box on my screen, it's in the upper right-hand corner. I think it's the third or fourth icon over. It's a conversation box, a chat box. You can click on that, and in that conversation box, there is a sign-in sheet as well as a survey that we would like everyone to take in reference to the art concepts. The survey will also be up for 2 weeks following this meeting. We'll put it on the Houghton Road website, and that website is Houghtonroad.info. That's HOU. HROAD.info. This meeting is also being recorded, and the recording will also be placed on the project website for those who were unable to participate in tonight's meeting, or if anybody that is participating wants to go back and review the meeting. So once again, that recording will also be on the website. I also want to ask that everybody that's participating in tonight's meeting to please provide respectful comments and constructive feedback. Staff and I on the back end of this live event, we will see all the questions and comments that come in through the chat box, and we publish those questions to Councilmember Lee. She will read them off, and then we will have the appropriate people answer those questions. Any negative comments directed to the artist or about the art concepts, those will not be published. So once again, we're looking for respectful comments and constructive feedback. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to Councilmember Nikki Lee.
Thank you, Michael. I just want to thank everyone, first and foremost, for making this meeting possible tonight and for your attendance tonight and spending time discussing this topic. Again, I'm Councilwoman Nikki Lee, your Ward 4 representative on the Tucson City Council. I really appreciate you being here because, you know, this is our community and this is our opportunity to make sure that our voices are heard and that your input is integrated into the beautiful art that you will see as you navigate through Ward 4 and through our community. So again, as Michael said, the purpose is to hold a final public meeting so that the artist and the volunteer arts committee can hear your opinions before moving forward on the final art concepts. And just to give you a little bit of background based on some of the comments and questions that we received when we published this event on social media, the City of Tucson has a policy that predates me, where 1% of new roadway capital improvement projects over $100,000 must be spent on public art. So this is really in response to this policy and part of this road project. In order to make that happen, a group of volunteer citizens is selected by the Arts Foundation for Tucson and Southern Arizona to listen to artist presentations and select the art that they feel best suits the Tucson area. And for this project, the artist Carolyn Broxma has been selected by the volunteer citizen group, and her proposal for this art project has been submitted. And now is your opportunity as members of the community here in Ward 4 to view the proposed art concept for Houghton Houghton Road to 22nd Street to Irvington and listen to the artist present her concept, which will be presented tonight by her husband, John, and ask questions and complete the online survey. So again, as Michael said, please provide constructive feedback so that that can be integrated. And I will go ahead and take this opportunity to introduce Carolyn Broxma's husband, John.
Thank you. Am I free to go ahead with the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me just give a little background here. My name is John Broxma. I'm Carolyn Broxma's husband. She's very under the weather right now, has been laid up for a few days with the worst cold I've ever seen her have. And we've been married for quite a while, so this is something else. But I will try to step in and give you a little background and summary of what she's proposed and what she's been working on. So you see from the first slide, this is for the Tucson Houghton Road 22nd to Irvington project. Carolyn's name, the date. If I could have the next slide, please.
John, I'm seeing the bridge and the art. Are you?
Now I am, yes.
Okay.
Okay, the next slide is a picture of some pretty significant past work that Carolyn did in Charlotte, North Carolina. The project was just completed a couple of years ago. This is for the Lynx Blue Line, which is light rail that goes from downtown Charlotte to the University of North Carolina. I believe it's about a 9-mile stretch of track. This particular slide is one of the very few overpass structures where the double track light rail goes over one of the significant roadways in Charlotte. Carolyn's input on this was the artwork for the bridge piers. These are indigenous plants that are indigenous to the Carolinas. These happen to be pitcher plants that were blown up, made into elastomeric form liner, and used when the bridge piers were cast. Carolyn also picked the color for the bridge, that green color that you see, and she also designed the railing that's up on top of the bridge. You just get a little slice of it at the very top. The railing was very, very well received. The bridge color was, the neighborhood was ecstatic that finally they had something that wasn't just a brown bridge. And the piers continue to draw comments, not only from the public, but also from some of the professors at the University of North Carolina who know about the plant. They were really enthusiastic to see that somebody finally recognized things that are very significant to the Carolinas and meant a lot to them. Could we have the next slide, please? There's just a little bit of lag time to those of you who are listening. So my presentation doesn't quite come in the same time as what you're seeing on the screen. Can we have the next slide, please? There we go. This is another example of work that Carolyn did on the Lynx Blue Line. These are concrete walls that support an underpass structure where the train goes under the highway and comes up at the University of North Carolina. Again, Carolyn used imagery from indigenous plant life to make large elastomeric form liners that were used for cast-in-place concrete walls. When the crews were building this, they just thought it was the greatest thing. They thought it was something that they could point out to their neighbors and families and say, "Hey, I did this. Isn't this great?" It was very well received, holding up very well. Of course, it's only been a couple of years, but it's holding up very well, as we expected. The next slide, please.
Go ahead, John. There won't be a lag on the other end. When you say next slide, you can move right on ahead.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a little bit of past work that Carolyn had done in Tucson. I believe the project was finished in 2017. This is on La Cañada at the north end of Tucson. Carolyn built form liners again. These are agave patterns, patterns made from stylized agave leaf patterns. And the columns are standard CMU concrete masonry units with glass block between and a corona or a crown of saguaro at the very top. This was done in several colors. We've been out to see it a few times in all types of weather, day and night. And again, people like it, seem to like it very well. So she was quite pleased with that. The next slide, please. The next slide is again a little bit of the work on La Cañada. Carolyn did paving patterns in the medians near the intersections on La Cañada. She used off-the-shelf paving material. She chose the colors, she chose the pattern, emulated, I believe, after Indian pottery, if I recall. I wasn't quite as involved with this project as I have been in others. And then on the right side of the slide is a railing that was done near places where water, either a wash or a brook, or, well, you don't have brooks in Tucson, but where water encroaches near the roadway. Carolyn modified the standard railing to be more evocative of water and added the ornamentation that you see, which are cast aluminum pieces that were attached to the rail. And the next slide, please. The next slide is some references that Carolyn has used for this particular project, the Houghton Road project. Again, the agave continues to entrance her. Saguaros, I think everybody has certain respect for saguaros. There's a Caliandra powder puff, that's an indigenous plant. Canyon wren, cactus wren. Between the two birds, you see the corona or crown that often occurs, that occurs occasionally on top of saguaros, and then the agave again at the top right. Carolyn spent a lot of time digging through various resources to get the sort of patterns that she thought would work well in concrete. Concrete has been her standard medium, but not her only medium. When she looks at patterns, she looks at things that can be built cost effectively, that offer opportunities for repeat, because there's always cost-effective savings when there are repeat patterns. And these are some of the things that she came up with. Next slide, please. The next slide are three of the patterns that she chose for possible use to modify concrete surfaces in the project. Concrete surfaces being walls or, well, in this case, it's really only walls. You don't have any bridge piers or anything like that. But the pattern she chose are cacti aerials at the very top, stars in the night sky in the middle, and then bird and bush shadows at the bottom. Again, these would be carved, for lack of a better word, out of material that would then be transferred to an elastomeric form liner that again is used by itself, and concrete is cast against it. So what comes out is the forms that, or the lines that you see, the patterns that you see. It's an involved process. It's kind of like making Jell-O a couple of times in a mold, and that's basically it. She's done it many times, had great success with it. She has a contractor online who's extremely interested in helping her make the form liners. In this particular project, really the only application, we can have the next slide, please, for concrete form liner is the wall that's near McGraw's. It's on the west side of Houghton as Houghton dives down toward the Pantano Wash. The wall faces east, and this is just a small model that Carolyn made, this slide and the next slide, to show theoretically what the walls could look like given form liners that have agave textures in them. She would like to see the walls be gray, not colored, so they can really accentuate plantings in front of the wall. You go to the next slide, you get a slightly different view. This wall, I think, is roughly 300 feet long, maybe 15 feet tall at the tallest. When last Carolyn discussed this with project people, there was still some decision making as to whether this would be a cast-in-place wall or a MSE wall or a shotcrete wall. Those are terms that are probably not recognizable to most of you, but they all require slightly different methods in dealing with elastomeric form liners. And until a decision is made on exactly what kind of wall is going to be put in this location, she can't really move forward on the elastomeric form line. This is not the only wall in the project, but it's really the only wall that's visible to traffic on Houghton. There are a couple of minor walls that are either visible from the multi-use path or from approaching roadways, or the big wall that's down south of this particular one near McGraw's will be a big MSE wall that doesn't face the roadway at all and really will only be seen by the people who live down below near the Pantano Wash on the east side of the highway, the east side of Houghton Road. You can go to the next slide, please. This, I believe, is a sheet that came out of the civil plans for the Houghton Road job. You see this, this is the wall near McGraw's on the west side of Houghton, faces east. It's about 250 feet long, maybe 300, 15 feet high max. That blue line that you see on the page is where the wall is. There's another wall down to the right, you see where it says begin retaining wall, see wall plans. That's a different kind of retaining wall. That one will be basically underneath the roadway to where people on the roadway won't see it. But the one near McGraw's, and I don't know, does McGraw's still exist?
Oh, it definitely does. They did have a fire earlier this year, but they are very much there.
Okay, we heard about the fire and I was afraid it would go away. I thought it was quite a nice place, or at least entertaining. And the food that we had there was good too. Okay,
delicious.
So this shows where that wall is near McGraw's. And it's just a straight wall. It does go downhill. And again, the details for how that works with the elastomeric pattern for the concrete will be worked out as the wall type is decided and the final alignment for the wall is decided. So we can go to the next slide, please. When Carolyn talked to the committee members and the public involvement team, they expressed a real desire to have monuments for the project. She chose to make monuments that use elements from her references that I showed you previously in the slide. This is a small model that shows one of the monuments. This one is proposed for the southeast corner at Houghton and Escalante. And then the next slide after that is a slightly different view. These would be visible from the roadway. They would be somewhat off the path. There's sidewalk on both sides of the highway, from what I recall, the large multi-use path on the east side and a more narrow sidewalk on the west side. This one at the southeast corner of Houghton and Escalante would be readily visible from the multi-use path and from the intersection. You go to the next slide. This is the northwest corner at Houghton and Escalante. Originally, Carolyn came up with 4 monuments, and she thought that it would be a good idea to put the monuments at the Pentano Wash Bridge. That was possible. It has 4 corners. It would have been suitable, but the team, after discussing it with her, thought it would be better if we could spread if she could spread the monuments over the project a little bit more. With help from the landscape architect and other input, Houghton and Escalante turned out to be a pretty good location for a couple of monuments. If we go to the next slide, that's a slightly different view of the one at Houghton and Escalante. And then the slide after that, this is from the civil plans, shows an aerial view of Houghton Road and Escalante. Of course, Houghton Road is in its final configuration, that is widened on both sides. The blue lines that you see top and bottom, the broad blue line at the top is the multi-use path along the east side of Houghton Road. And then the narrower blue line that you see on the bottom is the more narrow 6-foot or so sidewalk on the west side of Houghton. The red dots show where the monuments would occur. And Carolyn has been through some discussions with landscape architect on the possibility of moving some of the landscape elements or rearranging the monument location to suit the proposed plant life that will go there. Go to the next slide, please. When Carolyn came up with 4 monuments, and she separated 2 out for Houghton Road and Escalante, that left 2 for Pentano Wash Bridge. These monuments, and these are roughly to scale with the figure that's shown here, concrete bases, concrete portions that show the agave leaf, and then metal, pierced metal, and hopefully some lighting at the top to really set off these monuments. The next slide is an aerial view of Houghton at Pentano Wash Bridge. You see, again, the Pentano Wash Bridge is that goofy looking thing that's outlined in blue. The northwest and southeast corners show where the monuments would occur. They're both on approaches to the bridge, whether you're northbound or southbound. The one on the east side is next to the wide multi-use path, and so would be readily visible from that path, as well as traffic that's going really in either direction on Houghton near the bridge, but most visible to people who are traveling south for the southeast monument, traveling north for the northwest monument. And then the last slide, this is something that Carolyn came up with and discussed this at length with panel members and input the engineers as well, that there are some glow-in-the-dark stones that are available. Depending on what the material is in which they can be embedded, these stones can provide a very mystical nighttime experience where the stones are kind of charged up during the day, during the high sun, and then glow in the dark at night. And although she hasn't really decided where these can be used, it's something that the panel was very enthusiastic about, and asked this certain portion of the project not be forgotten as things move ahead. Okay, that's about it for the PowerPoint. Thanks for listening, everyone. We look forward to your comments.
John, thank you so much. I just have to say, I was texting my team, and you are a great man, John, because if I had to hand my husband a PowerPoint presentation for my job, it would be a disaster. So you are quite a great man to be able to explain your wife's work like that. So I just wanted to acknowledge how awesome of a person you are, John. So thank you for doing this. So we do have, let's see, so far I see one question that has come in, and it looks like, John, this will be headed your direction because it's a question about the art. So the question is, or the comment question is, I was told the artist is from Colorado. What research did she do, and how much time did she spend in the southeast side of Tucson getting to know our neighbors before designing her proposal? I have lived in Redington Hills since 1989, and the corn proposed to be outside of my neighborhood does not represent who we are. My wife and I would appreciate a cactus that looks like a cactus. Your inspiration pictures look like something we would like as a statue, not an artsy rendition. I like the wall. Thank you. We really like the horses past Walmart. So I know that was a lot, John, but.
Yeah. Maybe I can address a couple of things. I'll certainly relay these things to Carolyn. Carolyn and I have spent a good deal of time in Arizona, not necessarily in the Tucson area, but she did a lot of work in Phoenix and Scottsdale. We have been to Tucson multiple times. Not lately because of the way things are, but we look forward to getting back there when we have the opportunity. We've done a lot of hiking in the hills. We spent a lot of time driving on Houghton, back and forth, taking the various side roads, looking at the people and houses that live there, talking to people who live there, visited the nurseries, walked around in the Saguaro National Monument. I think she's done her homework. She tends to be very thorough about researching possible topics, and she's really fond of flora and fauna, as not so much Indian pottery and statues like that, but she will certainly take everything into consideration. These things are in progress. She does have a fabricator online, and I believe they've started some drawings, but it's never too late for more input. And I'll certainly pass these things along to Carolyn. Another thing that I should address is that Carolyn doesn't like to repeat what's already been done. For example, people made a big deal about the horse sculpture, that they really liked the horse sculpture. And I can't remember exactly where it is. And she thought, well, yeah, that's a nice piece, but why would I do the same thing? Why would I do something like that again? It's already been done, and it's been done well. The bird's nest is a different story. But she tries very hard to incorporate as much as possible different design input from the panel, from engineers on the project, from people who live nearby, from what she sees in the area.
Great.
So
Thank you, John.
We appreciate the comment.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, John. And that's exactly what this is for, right? To hear from the neighbors, to hear from the folks that live in the community and understand how to possibly integrate that feedback. So I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to do this. So I will go ahead and go to the next question/comment. This is from Mark C. I live off of Houghton and Escalante, and we cannot understand the monuments. We discussed it at our HOA board meeting, and it was overwhelming feedback that the corn cobs and stacked cactus sculptures are something we could not support near our homes. we can, what we can do to make, what can we do to make sure we can get something that actually looks like a cactus? The size looks way too big. We are dodging cars trying to get out of our neighborhoods now with cars racing and overgrown weeds, which is something, Mark, that we will take note of at the office, the speeding and the weeds, if that's something that we need to address. This will obstruct our views even more. Can the sculptures, can the sculptures and add another wall on the west side of Houghton? So that's just some more feedback. And then, like I said, Mark, we'll take a look at the racing and overgrown weeds. I'll see if my team has enough information on the location, Mark, to know where to look at those issues. And if not, maybe you can send us a note at Ward 4 at tucsonaz.gov. So we can hone in on that area and provide TPD with that information on the cars. Another looks like.
Can I offer a couple comments as an
Sure,
engineer
John.
who has done roadway work? I think what the commenter has missed is that Houghton Road is not going to look the same at all when this project is over. It will be much safer than it is now. And I know I got almost hit there last time we were in Tucson. It will be much safer. It'll be much wider. The monuments are set back from the intersection by a significant amount in collaboration with the landscape architect. There will be other flora and fauna in the area that will probably obscure things more than the monuments will. But again, we will take these comments into consideration.
Okay. Thank you, John, for providing that additional context, especially with your experience in engineering. Last comment that I'm seeing right now, I think a few more may be on the way, from Linda. I'm concerned about the monuments being too delicate and easily destroyed by vandals. Also, I would like to see more color on the walls, like the monuments on Broadway between Pantano and Harrison. The sketches shown will appear too busy as you drive by. So that's some more feedback on that. And we have another comment. Is it supposed to look like corn with a star coming out of the top? I like the horses further north on Houghton, and they seem to enhance the area. I feel like the corn looking statues are not quite right for the neighborhood. Similar comment, kind of couple in a row. One was questioning why corn, and then the following one, the monuments look like pineapples. So I guess some questions around around the art.
They're not intended to look like corn at all. And I'm sure that as these are fabricated, they will look less like corn and more like agaves than what is shown in the models. Yeah, that's about all I can say right now. As far as colors on the wall, Carolyn would very much like to see the color come out in the vegetation that's planted along the wall, not the wall itself. That's, she thinks, is more appropriate for the location. But again, we can take this into account.
Okay. Thank you, John. And no offense to corn, because I grew up being corn fed in the Midwest, so no offense to corn whatsoever. Question, and I'm actually going to need some help from some of the staff on the line here. Who has the final say in deciding the artwork? I believe it's the commission, but the artist. Actually, I don't know. I'm going to need to throw it over to my team and someone who can answer that.
Councilmember, this is Diana Alarcon, the Director of Transportation Mobility. How are you this evening?
Hi, Diana. Thank you for jumping in and saving me on this one.
No problem. Yes, ma'am. This does go before. The way that we have this structure is there is actually a committee that is put together that is actually managed through the Art Foundation. The renderings did go through the committee. They have approved it to move it forward. That's why we're having the public meeting. The comments will be taken into consideration, and then it moves forward. So the committee is made up of folks from the Art Foundation, as well as from a few community leaders. So we'll be having a follow-up conversation with the artist based on tonight's comments, and then those, any changes to the rendering will then go back before that committee.
Thank you, Diana, for jumping in, and good learning process for me as well. So I appreciate that. Another comment we have, thank you for being open to change. I agree. I do not care for the sculptures. I don't feel it represents us, but I do like the wall. The other walls you designed are beautiful too. Just please, no more cocoon. How far will the sculptures be to the middle school? I fear students will vandalize it. So that's a good question on how close they will be to the schools.
This is Kevin Thornton with the design team, and I'm just looking at it now. It looks like Escalante is approximately a quarter mile from Seacrest Middle School.
Okay. Very good. Well, I hope that answers the question for the person who wrote in, and I appreciate the feedback there as well. I'm just going to scroll through and see. We have another comment from Linda. Historically, the vegetation will end up dry and not be kept. Weeds will grow up and destroy the whole concept. Definitely important to focus on maintenance. Linda, thank you for bringing that up. Comment, please reconsider the dull gray wall. Thank you for that comment. Another question, so if the community here doesn't like the sculptures, will the artist be willing to redesign? I know she's not on at the moment, but I guess, John, I would just read that out there for you.
Of course, nothing's impossible. I will relay that thought to Carolyn, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you, John. We have a traffic-related question, and my team and I will take note and help fill this. It's not an art question. Will the middle school have traffic mitigation? It's so busy and we can't travel on Houghton during certain times. So we will take that note. And if whoever wrote this, and if you want to send us more information at ward4@tucsonaz.gov, for example, maybe times of day or certain specific areas and details, that'll help us hone in and work with the proper stakeholders.
Councilwoman Lee, Kevin is actually on the phone, our engineer, and so he might be able to help us.
Okay.
Hi, this is Kevin again. Yes, there will be traffic mitigation at the school. There are going to be, so first of all, during school drop-off and pickup times, it is a school zone, so it will be at 15 miles per hour. Just like you see anywhere else around town. In addition, we are also going to be providing speed feedback signs in the area of the school so that the drivers can tell how fast they're actually going. You'll see those occasionally around town as well, not at every school, but we will be providing it at this particular one. And finally, I'll just add that we are putting in a pedestrian crossing. It's called a Pelican crossing. That's where, in this case, the school crossing guard would press the button. You'd get flashing lights for the cars to stop, and then the kids would be escorted across the road. So those are kind of the safety measures we have in place, planned for the school.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for being on and for answering that. I know we all really care about safety when it comes to pedestrians and kids. So that's great to know. Great question to be asked. So question, how will the vegetation be watered?
I think I can take that one as well.
Okay.
There is an irrigation system planned for the project. And I'm not positive on this, Diana, or somebody else may need to answer this, but generally I know that the city waters at least for the first couple of years for plant establishment, and then they probably cut back or eliminate it. But there will be an irrigation system, certainly for plant establishment.
You're absolutely right, Kevin. Thank you for that. This is Diana again. The contract will have a 2-year watering so that it can properly root. And then after that, the irrigation system should be able to support the vegetation. And this will go into our regular maintenance programming.
Thank you, Kevin and Diana, for your support on that one. Looks like we've got one more so far. The walls, so it's just feedback. The walls need more color. Perhaps the background color could be mountain purple and agaves green. So just some feedback on color. If there's anyone that has called in that doesn't have the chat functionality available, you can unmute with *6 if you wanted to ask a question, since we have a kind of a pause in action. I want to see if there's anyone on the phone. *6 to unmute. Okay, we have another one that just came in, but I want to make sure I'll go back to the phones one more time before we wrap up tonight. If the community doesn't like the sculptures and the artist does not want to change them, does the community just have to live with them, or could the city intervene on the constituents' behalf? Diana, quite frankly, I don't know the answer. Can you help me out with this one as well?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I was rereading the question, so I answer it correctly. There is a process that's in place through the Art Foundation that has actually been approved and by council, and that is the process that we're following. So if there's additional changes that we want to make, we will have to work with the Art Foundation, who will work with the artist on any alterations that we would ask of the art piece. And so there is a process in place, almost, I want to necessarily say appeal process, but this is managed through the Art Foundation. So we'll work very closely with them to make sure that we are working with the artist on addressing some of these concerns that are raised by the community. And that was one of the reasons why we actually had moved forward with this public hearing, and really appreciate Councilwoman Lee that you were able to kind of like MC this for us so that we could actually have this great engagement with the community to have an understanding of what they expect and what they want out in their community as far as art.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Diana. I'm glad that we could do this as well.
Good evening.
I know artists, so, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Good evening, Council Member Lee. It's so good to see you. Thank you for presenting this open house this evening. I'm Adriana Gallego, the Executive Director with the Arts Foundation, and I did want to provide just a little bit more of context, if I may, in terms of the panel process and how the selection of an artist and the different procedures that take place in order to ensure an equitable, transparent, and accountable process. So the Arts Foundation stewards and manages the public art process for the city, and we work with the community where the project is going to take place to select members of the community that will be representative voices to review the applications and select the artists and work with the artists throughout the lifespan of the process to create the work. At every step of the way, any design processes, concurrences, changes, things, as things progress, there's a checks and balances whereby once information gets to the panel committee of 7 community members that are in the neighboring area where the artwork will take place, those recommendations then go to a 21-person panel called the Public Art Community Design Committee, which is made up of 7 members representing the county, representing the city, and representing members at large from the arts community. And these are appointed by our elected officials, and then the information gets forwarded to the board members of the Arts Foundation, which is all volunteer community members. And then that information gets processed back to the appropriate city offices. So I want to ensure everyone that there's a checks and balances at every step of the way so that your voice is heard, so that the design process is being looked upon and together with the community, because your voice is important, and we want to make sure that we are creating the spaces that we all want to continue to live in, while also ensuring that we are honoring the artistic creativity and the expertise that the artist brings to the table. So it's definitely a collaboration. Thank you.
So Councilwoman, if I could jump in here real quick, this is Diana.
Absolutely, Diana.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So Adriana, thank you so much. And you did such an eloquent job explaining the process better than me, and I appreciate it. And I said, but I think there was a little bit of a misstep in this particular art project because of COVID. And that's why we're taking these extra steps in place. So some of the usual opportunities that the community would have had to review were kind of not able to happen because we were in the midst of this COVID pandemic. So we do need to try to find a way to be able to incorporate some of the concerns that the community has raised, because we weren't able to do that due to COVID. So I'm looking forward to that conversation that we'll be able to have, and then see what we can do about addressing these concerns that our community is having as we move forward. And, you know, COVID has really been a strange challenge for all of us. But I think, you know, there's some great opportunities here to kind of get what the artist has provided and then what the community is expecting, so that we have a win-win. So thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Diana. And thank you, Adriana, as well. Really appreciate it. Will the potholes be filled before construction starts? I like the horses. Our team twice this week already has been out on pothole patrol, as we lovingly call it. We have a huge amount of area to cover, with Ward 4 being about 40% of the geographic size of Tucson. So if you can do us a favor and send in those pothole locations, and we will do our best to help if those don't get addressed in time. But Diana's on the call tonight. I'm sure they will. We proactively go out and look for them. If there are specific ones that we have not come across that haven't been reported, please let us know, and we'll do our best to get those taken care of. And I like the horses too. So thank you, anonymous commenter. Another anonymous. Who was the volunteer? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Councilwoman Lee, this is Al Wyrath.
Hi, Al.
One of the things I think a lot of the people on the Houghton corridor like to see is to at least look at the art and maybe to understand it right away. One of the problems that we'd have, of course, is that the cocoon is not really something, when you look at it, that it's easily recognizable as a cocoon. Guess if they put a butterfly or something at the end of it, showing that it was evolving out. And I think that's what a lot of the people are complaining about, is that some of the art that is being shown, especially for the bridges and stuff, may not look like the plants that are recognizable, and you're not going to have the artist standing there to try to explain to them. So, and also I was also wondering where they're putting the art on Escalante. I assume it'll be next to the multi-use path and also to the sidewalk. Are there going to be like some kind of a benches or something where some of the people who are walking whatever can rest and observe whatever art is finally chosen? Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Did anyone want to follow up on anything that Al mentioned from your perspectives? Okay. Thank you for calling in, Al, and I hope you're doing well. Another question. Who was on the volunteer group who lives in a neighborhood on Houghton? Because this doesn't look like something my neighbors want. I don't know if there's a way to answer that question, to know who actually lives out here along Houghton that may have been on the volunteer group. Is that anything that we can answer tonight? Does anyone know?
Jeff, do you have that information handy?
Sure, I can address that generally. So this is Jeff Tacasa, the manager of public art at the Arts Foundation. So whenever we assemble a panel for a given public art project, we source representatives on that panel from the community that are adjacent to the actual location of the artwork. So in this case, we do have representatives from, let's see here. Sorry, I'm scrolling down my chronology. We do have representatives from Houghton Village Neighborhood Association, South Harrison Neighborhood Association, and of course we have the Public Art and Community Design Committee representatives, the Ward 4 appointee from that committee, as well as a member or two sourced out of the open houses that were held previous to the panel actually getting started. So actually, I know Adriana touched on our chart earlier, but I might take another moment. If we could pull that up, I could detail that a little bit. And since there's a delay on my side, just let me know when it's up.
Looks like it's live now. Mm-hmm.
Is it? Okay, great. So, this is the general kind of flow chart for the 1% process, and this is also on the Arts Foundation website. And all this is tied to the city administrative directives. So if you go down to about the middle area where the artwork design phase, you can see just under that the final artwork design approved by the panel. So just after that is where we're at today, which is the artist brings the work to the public meeting for review and comment, construction project permitting. And that's what Diane Alcorn was referring to as well, is in an ordinary lifespan of a given project, there's actually several open house meetings for the actual construction project, which as the artwork is being developed, we certainly attend and show designs as possible. To Diana's point, COVID kind of threw a wrench into that. So we didn't have what would be called the typical timeline of visiting the in-process designs with the broader public. The way the 1% for Art program is structured, it is the panel that ultimately provides the more direct feedback through the evolution of the design. That being said, this forum here is precisely the purpose of this additional broader feedback. So as stated earlier, we have your comments in this meeting, and we also have those surveys that will be open for 2 weeks. So we expect to get all that feedback and then reassemble the panel for consideration of all those comments. So whether this ultimately results in some minor or more involved design changes remains to be seen, and that is what the panel is specifically shouldered with. So by all means, fill out those surveys and let us know your thoughts. And of course, everything that's been discussed in this meeting will certainly be passed on to the panel as well.
Thank you so much for adding that. We'll jump back to some more of the comments. We have about 7 minutes left. I want to honor everyone's time tonight, but we have about 7 minutes left, so I'll get through as many of these as we can. Frank says, can more specific statue ideas be provided in addition to less corn, more horse? Okay, so I'm assuming that the feedback will be taken back and integrated in. So will then additional ideas be provided? I guess, will the community see the result of the feedback from tonight before the final decision is made? And I think you probably just said that, but I just want to acknowledge Frank's question.
We can absolutely figure out a way to get the feedback acknowledgement, and we will discuss that with the team because we're getting some great feedback. And as you guys know, the surveys are available. They're going to be open for 2 weeks. So please, if your neighbors, have additional thoughts, this will be posted live so they can watch it. And then we're going to kind of sit down as a group again and really hash it out and talk about it. And so we'll let you guys know next steps and where we're at once we kind of get all the data. So we appreciate it.
Thanks, Teresa. Another comment, not a question. I love the 2 horse metal sculptures on Houghton. We do love horses out here, this is true. Question, how many people / communities would have to disagree for the artist and the commission to reconsider? It sounds like we've all heard that the feedback will be taken back and integrated. Did anyone want to add anything? Because this question did come in 10 minutes ago, and I think we've talked about that a little bit more. If we didn't get the question answered to your satisfaction, please do chime in again though, because I just want to make sure that you have the information that you're looking for. A comment, I agree with Linda, the vegetation will not provide enough color to offset the gray. Erica, thanks for putting the pothole contact information to report that. Looks like Diana has addressed Mark's question about a walking path, so that looks like it is addressed. Thank you, Diana. Okay. How are the 7 members representing this community selected? Did they have art training? I know that one person, I know Jeff mentioned, is Ward 4. We have an appointed person to a lot of different commissions, and one person just overall is appointed out of the Ward 4 office for art projects in general. But any other context for how these folks were selected?
Sure, if I could just chime in. So 2 members happen to be from the PAC-D meeting, or sorry, the PAC-D committee, which is Public Art and Community Design Committee. Both have art backgrounds. One of those members is the Ward 4 appointee, and then the remaining community members are, again, really sourced out of those active neighborhood associations. It is a challenging thing, as I'm sure there's people here in this virtual meeting that have probably seen me out there at their open houses recruiting occasionally over the years. Yes, you know, we're always seeking community members that have a passion for the arts and interest in the arts with potential art backgrounds, but it's critical that we get community members who are invested in their community to weigh in through the panel process, even if perhaps that they don't have any formal training in the arts, but we certainly advocate a passion for them.
Great, thank you for answering that. I know we have about 3 minutes left. We received a thank you for our office for listening and giving everyone the chance to provide the feedback. Also, John, thank you to you from the audience here. I can tell you are nice people. I agree with that completely. I'm sorry that we don't like the art. That was the comment that was made, but I will double down on the fact that you are awesome, John, and we really appreciate you. So we do have some additional comments in here about color, adding more color. And what I want to do is just kind of wrap this up tonight because we do have about 2 minutes left. Christina put another link to the form to provide feedback into the survey here. So I want to make sure that we close that out to make sure that everyone knows, and we'll include this in our newsletter and on our social media page as well. And as Teresa mentioned, if you have any neighbors that have ideas of what they want to see and just feedback in general on this project, please make sure that you share this link with those folks. I just want to open it up. Teresa, is there anything else that we need to cover tonight?
I don't believe so. Just a huge thank you. Thank you for everybody who's been participating. This has been great.
Yes, I will definitely agree with that. I do want to thank you all for your engagement on this. It's so important. I'm married to an artist, and I know how art is so subjective, and I'm sure it makes everyone's job really challenging because what someone really likes, another person might not understand. And as Al said, we don't have an artist there to explain what they're looking at. So I know it's very, very subjective. So I really appreciate everyone taking time to provide their feedback so that everyone likes what they're going to be looking at, or as many people as possible like what they're going to be looking at with this new project. So I want to thank everyone again for their time. If there are any other issues that surface tonight that our team can help out with, please shoot us an email, ward4@tucsonaz.gov, and have a safe and healthy rest of the holiday season. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.